was his favorite movie star. Now Gary was the kind of boy who would not send a second letter until he received your reply. Years could go by, but he wasn't going to write if you hadn't answered his last. Since Brenda, before long, was married, she was 16 and thought she couldn't live without a certain guy. Her correspondence lapsed. She might mail a letter from time to time, but Gary didn't really get back into Brenda's life until a couple of years ago when Aunt Bessie called again. She was still upset about Gary. He had been sent from Oregon State Penitentiary to Marion, Illinois, and that, Bessie informed Ida, was the place they built to replace Alcatraz. She was not accustomed to thinking of her son as a dangerous criminal who could be kept only in a maximum security prison. It made Brenda begin to think of Bessie. In the Brown family, with its 7 sisters and 2 brothers, Bessie must have been the one who was talked about the most. Bessie had green eyes and black hair and was one of the prettiest girls around. She had an artistic temperament and hated to work in the field because she didn't want the sun to make her tough and tanned and leathery. Her skin was very white. She wanted to keep that look. Even if they were Mormons farming in the desert, she liked pretty clothes and finery, and would wear white dresses with wide Chinese sleeves and white gloves she'd made herself. She and a girlfriend would get all dressed up and hitchhike to Salt Lake City. Now she was old and arthritic. Brenda started writing to Gary once more. Before long, they were into quite a correspondence. Gary's intelligence was really coming through. He hadn't reached high school before they put him in the reformatory, so he must have done a lot of reading in prison to get this much education together. He certainly knew how to use big words. Brenda couldn't pronounce a few of the longer ones, let alone be sure of their meaning. Sometimes Gary would delight her by adding little drawings in the margin. They were damn good. She spoke of trying to do some artwork herself and mailed a sample of her stuff. He corrected her drawing in order to show the mistakes she was making. Good enough to tutor at long distance. Once in a while, Gary would remark that having been in prison so long, he felt more like the victim than the man who did the deed. Of course, he did not deny having committed a crime or two. He was always letting Brenda know he was not Charlie Goodguy. Yet after they had been sending letters for a year or more, Brenda noticed a change. Gary no longer seemed to feel he would never get out of jail. His correspondence became more hopeful. Brenda said to her husband, "Johnny, one day, well, I really think Gary's ready." She had gotten into the habit of reading his letters to Johnny, and to her mother and father and sister. Sometimes, after discussing those letters, her parents, Vern and Ida, would discuss what Brenda ought to answer, and they would feel full of concern for Gary. Her sister, Toni, often spoke of how much his drawings impressed her. There was so much sorrow in those pictures, children with great big sad eyes. Once Brenda asked, "How does it feel to live in your country club out there? Just what kind of world do you live in?" He had written back, "I don't think there's any way to adequately describe this sort of life to anyone that's never experienced it. I mean, it would be totally alien to you and your way of thinking, Brenda. It's like another planet." Which words in her living room offered visions of the moon. "Being here is like walking up to the edge and looking over 24 hours a day for more days than you care to recall." He finished by writing, "Above all, it's a matter of staying strong no matter